No need to. You wish to sum up?
Well, I will, Mr Chair. I just don't think the annual plan process is contained or confined or restricted because of some other decision of council. I'm struggling with that concept. I probably disagree with my colleague Mike Mohi. I think there is an opportunity to look at a different model of doing things. I would suggest that, and I have never suggested the Maori Committee itself be not part of a governance arrangement. All I'm suggesting is that with the addition, just to replace the chair really, with the addition of an elected Māori representative who, in my view, could chair that committee, then spread that load. But I think Mr Mohi himself has illustrated in his time around this table that the Māori voice is important to have at the table. The only thing that is missing is his ability to vote, and to me ultimately that is where it's at. That position ought to be able to vote around the table, and I'm just foreshadowing a scenario 10 years down the track when we do finally get to the point where we recognise that and take the logical next step.
Thank you. Well, I'll put that motion in. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Right. Central Hawke's Bay District... Oh, Central Hawke's Bay, did I say that out loud? I did say that out loud, didn't I? Hawke's Bay District Health Board application for funding. Any questions? Wish to speak?
I just note that it's a pretty cheeky suggestion and request, but never mind. And I also note that Hastings District Council, as Mayor Lawrence informed yesterday, have offered assistance from their technical parking people to help them with planning and so on.
No further speakers. Councillor Scott.
I think it was disappointing that they came with the fact that there was either a contracted-in service or ratepayer funding. There are other options for them to look at, and as a board I think they've got to accept responsibility of their own, running their own services.
Thank you. Put that motion in. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. Iwi engagement. Questions in regard to this, Mr Mohi? Or
questions or statement?
Well, you get a statement once we move it. Yeah. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Gilbertson.
I'd have to second it with a small change, if I may suggest.
Suggested your change?
It notes the request, I think, rather than notes, agrees. Isn't that what we said we might do? Isn't it a bit stronger?
Yep, good.
If with that I'm really fine, I'm already there.
Mover, you wish to speak? Are you happy with that, Councillor Gilbertson? Yep. You don't wish to speak? Mr Mohi.
I do note Dr White's rather late acknowledgement of the Regional Planning Committee involvement. They confessed they haven't spoken to them, and I understand that the Regional Planning Committee Māori members are very keen for them to do that. Thank you.
Wish to sum up? Put the motion in. All those...
There's just... I just feel there are grammatical inconsistencies in the way that we set these things out, and makes no change to the annual plan. Well, the annual plans, it would make no change to the annual plan budget, but effectively you are making a change as a consequence of a submission. So where there's no change in a monetary sense, I believe on the end it should say makes no change to the annual plan budget. And
I'd agree
but
with-
rather than and is a better word as well.
Ink full stop. Ink full stop. Yeah, that's the other option. Iwi ink full stop. Because that's the answer.
Put that motion then. No, we've put that motion. Right, let's move on. Kairakau Storm Damage Protection Scheme, page 23. Happy to move. Second that. Discussion. Put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Let's keep going. Narororo Water Storage. Sorry, Councillor Gilbertson, you wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, we've got pragmatic reasons for deferring that, and that we just simply cannot progress it at this time. But I appreciate the advice that we've had from the fruit growers in the area. Water shortage is going to be a very pressing issue. There now, it was this year, will be even more so probably with the changes that may come through tank, and we must find a solution to water in that area. So while I support the current situation, I do believe that Council must keep an eye on that one and move as soon as expedient.
Thank you. Seconder. Other speakers? Councillor Douglas.
It's just a question. The Section 36 charges, Diane talked about them. Is it in another area that this comes up? Okay.
The resource management charge.
Put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Page 25, oil and gas exploration. You happy to move that? Councillor Rose, seconded. Councillor McGregor, you wish to speak? Speak, Councillor McGregor. Other speakers? Put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. You're on a roll. Rates, page 27. You support point number 1, did you say, Councillor? No questions in regard to this one?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't have a question. Is this the right time to talk about the total rates mix and quantum, or does that come right at the end? Okay. No, I can't handle it by a question. Oh, I can. Okay. The question is it possible to bring the net rate effect down to CPI plus growth plus the emergency need of those dams that had to be fixed that had a 0.6 effect, I think it was, on rating? The reason why I say that, the rates effect with a...
Let's answer the question first.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes, very, Mr. Chairman. The cost of living adjustment we use is driven by the Burrell economic indicators, which is 3.2. 3.2, and I think our overall increase in rates is 4%, plus the 0.6 for the flood and drainage damage. So what we have on the table then, if we wanted to keep it to the 3.2 plus the 0.6, we'd be looking at reducing rates by, what, 0.8%, which is equivalent to 15.5 million total rate take. So you're looking at maybe 120,000, 130,000. Would that be right?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, I wasn't planning to use Burrell, I was planning to use CPI.
Yeah, but Beryl provide cost indices that are appropriate for use by the local government sector, and all councils use that. They don't use a basket of goods that are predominantly food based.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to be debating, but it's important to get the question answered in the way I'm asking it, so I'm sorry I'm not conveying it very well. The Beryl is used in the basket of goods under the PPI/CPI/ all that stuff of indexing of the cost structures of local government. People pay for their rates under CPI. They don't pay for rates under PPI. And so when you get the structure of a monopolistic effect of a local government which has no competitor, insisting on a payment greater than the affected party that has to pay, which is the ratepayer, you will get that gap. And if I can, if you would forgive me to illuminate it slightly better, annual inflation is expected in the coming year, this is July year, which is our year, to be 1.52%. Now, if we're using Beryl at 3.2, which is a cookie cutter set back in October, or whenever Beryl gave us the numbers, when the budget started, then we have that huge gap. And as a principle, I do not stand at all for councils going beyond inflation plus growth plus emergency, because the people don't pay that way. And we've just gone through a severe drought, which has affected a lot of people and will for the next 2 years, I suggest, in some of the hill country area. And we've just had people in front of us talking about effects on their peaches and other crops. It isn't right. And I'm not worried about other councils per se. I believe that it is possible to bring it down to, and my number would be 1.52 plus 0.6, so it's just over 2.1. And there's a variety of ways of doing it. I can make suggestions, but equally I'm happy to be better informed. But as a principle, can we have a look now, and that's why I thought we might do a wrap-up at the end, but have a look now, because we've got people saying to us rates are too high. And somewhere in the slop, and we've just seen, and I don't mean that unkindly, I think it was about 7 million of carry forwards. Somewhere in the slop, we can find those numbers and look our ratepayer in the eye and say, we're a very efficient council because we're staying at where you pay from, not where our cost centres are done. And I think local government makes a very, very bad situation.
Do you want to try it with a motion?
Well, sir, I'm not quite sure, but the motion I would do is that the quantum of total rates is 2.1%, including the 0.6, and staff and or councillors, if that's the better way, come back with suggestions quite quickly on how we can achieve that against all rates. And I think that will achieve. So what's the motion? The motion is that the total quantum of all rates be 2.1.
Okay, so can we have a question before I ask for a seconder on that? Councillor.
How are you defining growth? Councillor?
Well, growth is population growth, and generally speaking, Hawke's Bay unfortunately is not achieving that.
Well, maybe not population growth, but property growth. In other words, growth in the rating base is appropriate.
I'd accept that.
And it can be substantial. I can remember 12 years ago across the road there we were budgeting about $70,000 a year in new income, and that's just one, 55,000 person city.
Okay, just say we've got a motion on the table, just so we can get some shape around this. You happy to second that, Councillor Gilbertson? You wish to speak now? Be aware that you do have the right of reply at the end of that. So.
I'm just conscious that all councils are running on the Beryl process, and I call it complicated budgeting. We have to, I understand that, because audit requires budget to have some solidity behind it. But if we simply say that we're stuck in that rut, that we will stay in that process. We know that inflation is coming down, and indeed, according to inflation to expectations, and this is the consensus one, in other words, this is not just Beryl, a whole heap of people, and they put them together, they're reckoning that we'll stay roughly about 2% over the next 2 years. So if we're running at 4.5, thereabouts, we're actually running well above it. Now, I haven't gone back to this council and looked at the rating effect, but I know the 2 district councils here have had a rate effect far higher than inflation over a 10-year period, significantly higher. And we always want to do better for our communities. There's no question. But our communities are having hard times and have had certainly since the global crisis. And it's a good way for us to signal that we'll bring it back. It's also a good way of getting efficiencies in our organisation to say, well, we can actually manage within those numbers. Two arguments then go. One is, well, we're talking with reasonably small numbers. Mr. Drury's pointed out 1% is roughly 150,000, give or take. So I'm talking about bringing it back by about 300,000. So the world doesn't stop either way.
Microphone, sorry, excuse me.
Sorry. The world doesn't stop either way. But equally, 300,000 is not just symbolic, but it's actually real money that people have in their pocket. And I prefer people to have money in their pocket than monopoly organisations like councils. And I think we have an obligation that way as well to our folk. And if we're not good at that, then all we're doing is growing the cake, because the cake next year will be 2% greater than it needs to be this year if you see the cumulative effect of rates. I have some suggestions, if necessary, of where we could find it. You can do a Procrustean system and simply take off 2% off every targeted rate. In fact, you'd end up with roughly the number I'm talking about. I don't suggest that because I think that's a bad way of doing it. Equally, within that, we've got other ways of doing it. I'll give you one other. The salary effect in here is 2.4 in the Burl salary rate, I think. And there's a note about you're actually using 2.1, I think, Mr. Drury, in the budget. Salaries, and I may be corrected on this, generally are done on a 100%. We never have 100% of staff, ever. And if you hold back staff vacancies for even a week, over a period of a staff turnover of, 8%, 10%?
Slightly less.
Slightly less, okay, well that's really good, it is. You actually end up with quite a quantum of money, that's all I'm saying, in a bucket called salaries. I'm not saying that people shouldn't get paid, I'm not saying people shouldn't get wage increases, all I'm saying is you treat your bucket slightly differently, and this is how I believe it can be done. Now, I'm very strongly of the view on this because I think that's a principle of local government has been abandoned over the last few years. And I don't talk about just this local government, I'm talking generally about the industry. And that's because life is tough out there for councils as well in terms of demand. But equally, I believe we can achieve this quite readily without breaking the camel on this one. Taking Councillor Dick's point, should we include where the rating base is growing in some sense? I'm pretty open-minded to that if we can get a handle on what that is. I suspect in the last valuation it didn't grow, so while I think as a principle you're right, I don't think it's actually had that effect on my understanding of the rating base in Hawke's Bay at this stage. But if it is the case, then I'm happy to be improved in that regard.